Hello, everybody. I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes, and welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings. Today, I am trying again because my computer keeps on pretending that it's a tablet, which is really annoying because if I wanted a tablet, I'd have bought a tablet. Um, this book is part of a collection that was released by the publisher Grosset Dunlap Incorporated back in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. They released a series of books that were classic children's novels. Various publishers do that periodically. They'll take a bunch of out of copyright old children's books and release a bunch of them one after the other or in collections in an attempt to get people to spend money and stuff. Anyway, so this one probably had Alice in Wonderland because you can see in the top left corner there is Alice and the Queen of Hearts. This is the back cover. I don't recognize most of these books. I think second from the bottom on the right is Brer Fox and Brer Rabbit, which is something that I did not read much of as a child. The book that we're actually talking about today, however, Hans Brinker or The Silver Skates, A Story of Life in Holland by Mary Mapes Dodge. This was initially published back in the 1860s, 1865, and if you heard a crash, that was my friend's rabbits having hysterics just now. And this particular book opens with a letter from the author, dated July 30th, 1873, from Amsterdam, in which she says, Messrs. Scribner, Armstrong, and Company of New York are printing for you the story of the Silver Skates. So this particular book, as you can tell, the actual original published version of this book is fairly old. You may have noticed a penchant on my part for older books, and no, I am not so old as to have had Hans Brinker as being a brand new book in my childhood. But I do have a penchant for older books. In this particular book, it's a story of obviously Hans Brinker, but also his sister Gretel, his mother who is raising them effectively as a single parent because his father, who used to work on the dikes of Holland, and if anybody doesn't know, which I assume you all do if anybody's listening, but if you don't, Holland has traditionally been a country that existed below sea level. And Dodge talks about that rather a lot in this book. The big thing about this country is because it existed below sea level, they built up gigantic dikes, that is, dams, surrounding huge portions of the country in order to keep the sea at bay, and they had to have people manning the dikes, and probably still do have people around the edges of the country, constantly trying to keep things from being flooded, because that's really sensible. Being on land that is actually below sea level and is threatened consistently and constantly with being flooded out. People are weird. Anyways, the reason that this is subtitled, well, sub-subtitled, A Story of Life in Holland, is because the story of Hans Brinker is almost beside the point. Much of this book is dedicated, and indeed Dodge says in her initial letter that it's dedicated to teaching American children about Holland. This is about what life is like in Holland, what Holland looks like, what the people are like, and at least what it is like as of 1865. Obviously, things down around The Hague have changed since then. Now, the bulk of this story, or rather the central geographic point of this story, is the urban center, town, city. I don't do research on this, so the very small, desultory amount of research I've done on this indicates that the the town or city of Broek, which I am clearly most likely completely mispronouncing because I speak no Dutch. That's more or less where this takes place. Um, and one of the big events in this book is actually that a bunch of boys decide that they are going to skate because this is Holland, and with the rivers frozen over, they do what people in frozen countries with rivers have done for centuries, and that is people use the river as a form of transportation and just skate up and down it to get places. And this collection of boys, including one Englishman who's there for expository purposes, skate from Broek to Leiden, then to uh, oh, where was it? Oh, they skate from there to most of the way to The Hague, and passing through Amsterdam on the way. That was it. And the story follows these boys as they go on their trip, and this is where the bulk of their exposition about various about history and geography and the people of Holland comes from, is this spontaneous trip that a bunch of boys go on um, with the intention of skating all the way from Broek to, as I said, all the way up to The Hague. Now, this bunch of boys, um, or there are two groups here, really. That you have Hans and Gretel and their mother and their father, and on the other end of things is the collection of young men who are from really quite well-off families, who are basically zipping around for a lark. You you have these various boys whose names I cannot find. Karl and Ludwig, Peter van Hoop, Jacob Poot, and basically their story is basically just this lengthy trek up the river. Now, the thing that makes this book for me, although maybe not for so many other people, is that this is a travelogue. I enjoy the travelogue format in my fiction. I don't mind stories that don't have a massive point. I want them to go somewhere, but I don't mind if that going somewhere is just a matter of physical location rather than some sort of important plot point. And so, one of the things that I enjoyed about this book very much when I was reading it as a kid, and enjoyed again when I was rereading it now, is that this has a lot of history in it. It has a lot of descriptions of places and people and and strange traditions and unusual clothing. And it's one of the reasons why I like reading not necessarily historical novels, but I enjoy reading a lot of books that were written in the past because I enjoy reading about places that are not familiar. I enjoy reading about um, different places and people and things in a lot of my fiction. It's why I enjoy fantasy. But a book like this, which was written contemporarily to a time that I have no direct access to, with a large amount of description of people and places that I don't have immediate and direct access to, it's really, really interesting for me. It's really fun. And half of what I enjoy about these sorts of things is stepping into another world, and the past is another world. The past is a distant country, to misquote. And so Hans Brinker, for all that it is massive amounts of exposition about Dutch history and massive amounts of, oh my god, are you kids ever going to talk about things normal kids talk about? And what are you, a pocket-sized tour guide, you 14-year-old weirdo? There's a certain amount of that, of course, but that's what makes the book interesting. And yes, it's a conceit in the book. Yes, it's unnatural. But that's what makes the book for me. I mean, yes, of course, the story of Hans and his sister Gretel and their struggles with poverty and Hans's desperate search for a doctor and finally getting a doctor who will come and how this doctor manages to actually bring his father back after 10 years. And by the way, this whole thing with his father waking up after 10 years, that's because his father has basically been suffering from a severe cranial trauma for 10 years, and he might as well have been in a coma because he wakes up and 10 years have passed, and his little girl, who was like 1 year old when he got knocked on the head, is now 12, and his son, who was, 4, is now 14. And you have that story going on in the background, um, but that's not really what this book is about. I mean, yes, of course it's about that, but what it's about is talking about the geography of Holland. It's talking about the history of Holland. It's talking about the unusual St. Nicholas Eve traditions of Holland that are different from the traditions of Christmas in America. It's about, it's about a culture of people living a on a country that is filled with canals to the point where those canals are transport not merely in summertime but in the winter as well because everybody skates on them. And and that's what I enjoy about this. I I enjoy the little things about how killing a stork is considered to be bad luck and all of these little all of these little footnotes about how to pronounce things in Dutch and what various people's honorifics are and what they're called. That's what I enjoy in this book. Now, if you don't like that, and if you don't like massive amounts of story based exposition that is entirely unnecessary, if you're the kind of person who who really wants to get back to the plot or wants to get back to character development or wants to get back to, artistic descriptions of things, no, this isn't the book for that. But if what you enjoy is just learning random stuff, this is a great book for it. It's like a chance to learn random stuff while reading a novel. And I really, really like that. I like the travelogue format to it because the trip on skates, as I said, from Broek up all the way up to the Hague, that's a travelogue, and that's fun. So, um, fictional historical children's travelogue set in Holland. Uh, I recommend it, as always, because I only do books that I like on this channel. Um, so I hope somebody's enjoyed this, my third attempt at recording this video, and I hope to see you next week